Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At first, I would like to thank ICD for giving me this opportunity to talk to such a distinguished audience. I really enjoyed the very vivid discussions just before my presentation, and I will start just on comment and what's optimism, what's pessimism. And I must argue that I'm not in the same opinion that the previous speaker. Then more you know, more realistic you become, more pessimistic you become. That means there's no sense to gather here and to speak to each other. To my opinion, more information we get about the real situation on the ground, more optimistic we should be, because we gain some tools and understanding how to use the tools to tackle the problems. That's why we are talking to each other. So, but there's another joke about pessimism and optimism. There are two people, you know, one smiling, one very sad. That's who is sad is a pessimist. And why he's sad? Because everything is so bad, everything is so bad. And the people ask the other guy who is smiling, who is an optimist, why are you smiling? I know, it will become worse, it will become worse. So don't imagine that that's going on. So, then now come to the topic. Let's say the idea is to use a culture as a diplomatic tool to promote better understanding and better common relations between the countries and between the people and nations. That's okay. But I would like, it's a little bit wishful perception that the culture is always making us better as individuals, as groups, and as well as globally. Yes, I agree with that. That's my perception, and it's very my deep belief that culture makes the world better. Okay, but there's one point we have to understand. To make it work, to make this idea work, we must understand the complexity and the diversity of different cultural roots in this global community of multi-layered identities. If you ask each other who you are, you will answer at least on 2 or 3 identities you have. At least, who am I? I'm a Latvian, by ethnic origin, by nationality, I'm European, and of course I'm a global citizen. So that's my perception of my identity. And they are my responsibilities according to my identities. But from the very beginnings, people unite around their cultural roots. Every tribe, every group, since ancient times, created and forwarded their traditions from generation to generation. And we must understand that culture is not just an art. Culture is much more complex issue. That means, it's a wider perception of family structure, communications and behavior between individuals and groups, which create a hierarchy of definite society. And we must understand that even language, and we speak very many languages over the world, is a part of the culture. Recently, I finished a translation of my memoirs, and I was very keen to have data very exactly translated from one language to another language. And we succeeded because, I tried my best. And when I wrote my memoirs, my thoughts by myself in 2 different languages, the emotions were different. And they were different. I was talking with myself about the same topics in the same way, but in different languages. They raised me different emotions, even to the author. Nothing to say about the readers, So we must take into account that. And in this process of creating the national culture, or let's say a culture of any group, why it was done? Because it was very important to make the self-confidence of every group, every tribe, of every group, and make it stronger in a competition with other groups around. So it's a very important issue. The culture is a very important issue of survival in this world. We have to understand that. And it's also important that's why the people did their best to create this tradition of every group, because they were rules of how to contact with each other and how to contact in the public space of definite group. And we have to understand that behavior in a public space is a part of a culture because it makes the individuals this task much easier. They understand the rules. And that's a very interesting remark by you. You said it's discrimination because, I was not allowed to raise a question, But the rule was 2 questions, and it was violated 2 times in this room. The rule of law was violated 2 times in 5 minutes. At first, there was a person who gave 2 questions. He nationalized, both questions by himself. And the other one was, that we had 4 questions instead of 2. So we have 2 perceptions. The first one, discrimination, and the second one, the rule of law. So we have to manage both. Avoid discrimination and follow the rule of law. But if we look at the modern world, this interconnected with internet, very fast transport routes, very overlapping economic relations, we must recognize that not only diversity of cultural behavior patterns is in a great number. It's a huge number. We cannot count how many cultural groups in the world we have. We can count how many countries. We can even count how many religious groups, but we can't count how many cultural groups do we have in this world. And even more, we cannot find the borderlines in between these groups because they are not the same borders than the state borders of the ethnic borders. These borders exist only in our minds. The groups of culture have their borders, but they exist only in our minds. We have to understand really this as a very important thing. But we also have to understand that each group of culture feels very comfortable just including in these borders. When you talk to other people, you know the rules, there's a consensus how to behave, what are the rules of public behavior. And every time we step out, we feel a little bit uncomfortable because we don't know the rules of the other group. That's real life. And we have also understand that the cohabitation, living together by different groups of culture, have existed for centuries and many thousand years. Many cultural groups live in the same city for many centuries, or in the same area for many centuries. And they have learned how to exist together, how the competition between the groups is not creating a violence, how to respect each other. That's nothing new. It's not about our age. It's about how humanity has survived in the centuries and the centuries of our history. And we have also to understand that these rules of cohabitation have developed in a very, very long time with the patience, with understanding, and with respect. But today we see that even being so old tradition and even being so historical, these rules of behavior of different cultural groups are very fragile to the challenges of today's world, the fast-changing world, And what happened in the Middle East is a very great example of that. We really understand people living together with different cultures, with different cultural attitudes, have had peace for a long, long time. And now all they are in war with everybody, and nobody can understand how to tackle this problem, how to make a solution that fits everybody. And what we see in today, we see a social disaster, a real magnificent social disaster, and destruction of all the infrastructures which were created in centuries. Now that was gone. Look at the pictures of Aleppo. I don't ask why, I ask what we can do with all this destructive area with a social disaster. And we have no answers. It was so easy to destroy, but it was not so easy to create. And of course, the modern tools of communication have been used to strengthen these groups. Sometimes you call echo chambers, you find people who think similarly on the internet and who tell each other all the same thing, and after some time, you become an isolated group with a unified understanding of a global world, but it might be very different from the others. We have some positive examples, like if you know the Cherkess ethnic group, it seemed to be disappeared. Now with an internet that people with Cherkess origin find each other on internet, stick together, and make the cultural heritage of Cherkess people like a puzzle. Everybody has some family memories about what was the tradition, how we did, what was our territory, what was our history, They have no territory, they have no land at all. They have disappeared in the whole world. Now they are sticking together and recreating the Cherkess identity and Cherkess culture just in internet by modern tools. But we have also a very negative examples. And some groups or part of the groups, I would say better, transform the cultural heritage into aggressive ideology, using the same tools of internet, because it makes them so easy. And let's try to find out why it happened. Why? You see, to my mind, the groups of the cultural groups were used to have cooperation with the neighboring groups around. Okay, and I know my neighbor from the east and the west and the north and the south, and I understand his behavior, a little bit understand, and maybe very well understand what are the behavior rules in that community. And so it was easy. Today, when the world is opening in interconnection, with internet being everywhere, it's very natural that these groups are scared, because they don't know about the cultural habits, the behavior, public behavior habits, about some distant groups, some are not even in another continent. And they are scared to, of course, to lose in this competition. They are scared that their traditional way of living will be destructed. So they are even scared that they will disappear, or they will be really disappearing in this very, very fast changing, global environment. The assimilation is nothing new. It happened also in the history, but they are afraid of that. So it becomes this situation that people are scared leads to the situation becomes a very fertile soil for self-isolation. Let's protect myself. Let's protect my group. Let's build a wall or fence around my community, and we'll live in a happy world. But you can't do that. The second is blaming everybody outside this group for the group's failures, or let's say, or the problems existing in this closed area. It's very easy to blame somewhere else. Somebody else is guilty for your faults. That's not true. We have to be responsible about yourselves. That's really a lesson we have to learn all the others. But in a more radical way, it's very easy to create a situation that our group feel like an exception. Our group is the best in the world. It's the only right way to behave. It's the only right way how to build the future. And all the others are aliens or even enemies of us. And in the more radical way, it's easy to start a global war against anybody who is different from us. And this is a problem. And this is not a problem just of one group, this is a problem of the whole world. We try to convince the others that we are better. No, that's not true. We all are good. We all are good, not somebody better, somebody less. This is the most important perception that we have to follow if we want to change our worlds. Because this situation, try to convince others that our system, economic system, political, religious system is better, leads to a situation that somebody is a creator and somebody is destructor. And what we see, some states really start acting in this way. It leads to the creation of a new society in their own home. That's like Russia today. I have not used any other country because Russia is my neighbor. They're going to self-isolation. They're talking the Orthodox religion is the best religion in the world. They're starting to talk the Pan-Slavic world. That means that the Slavic territories, the historical Slavic territories, and nothing else. And nobody knows where the borderline is, and even the president says that there's no border. So the border is not, how to say in English, you know. It was very nice. It was reproduced in Russian TV several times. Yeah, the Russian border has no limits. What does it mean? And he told it to the small boy about 8 years of age or 10 years of age. And a few days later, the small boy said, I met with my president, and he said to me that the Russian borders have no limits. And I became scared. Because what's on the opposite side, they don't care about the destruction in Aleppo. They just bomb the city, you know, because that's not territory. That's not their business, you know. And this is a very dangerous sign we face today. Because that means that we have forgotten that we all are responsible for the globe. Not just few nations or few religions. We all must rule this world, and we all must feel responsible for that. If there is a failure in one place, it's a failure for me. If there is a success in some part of the world, this is my success. So this should be a realistic picture of today's world. Not a very nice picture, I would say, you know, because we expected better. In the beginning of the year 2000, we had millennium expectations. We had the millennium goals to fight poverty, you know, to bring all the people to some level of welfare. We failed. Instead of we have a lot of wars. So, what we can do and must do. I wrote down some points. The first one is we have to acknowledge that we cannot stop globalization process of the interconnected world. We must adapt to this one. We can't stop the technologies. We cannot do that. Sooner we recognize that, sooner we have the tools for tackling the problems, global problems. The second point is we are going to live in mixed culture, multicultural environment. Forget about, you know, segregated groups in all over the world who live alone and, you know, they survive alone. Okay, there are examples they can do that, like Cuba did since 1959, like North Korea is doing. Closed societies, isolated societies. At the same time, they might become dangerous societies, yeah, for the other world. So we can do that. We can live with that, but the question is, do we need that? So the third point is that we must distinguish what we can and must change in our perception of global order, or let's say local order, and what we have not to change, to just accept and respect. Most of all, we have to create the rules of public behavior. Why, I will say you. You see, we can't change anybody's ethnic tradition or family tradition. We can't change it. Don't start even doing that. Leave this for the family, leave this for the ethnic group, leave this for their apartment, and respect it. That's what we have to do, because we can't change it. Everybody who tried to change ended up with concentration camps. This is not possible. So, the second rule is we cannot change the religious tradition. People can move freely from one religion to another. We have to respect it. But we have to understand somebody will stay in mosque, somebody will stay in synagogue, and somebody will stay in church. And somebody will be Shinto, and somebody will Buddha, and somebody will Hindu. So, because this is the backbone of the human soul, his religious belief is the backbone. We cannot, break the backbone. Leave him, because this is his self-confidence. If he is self-confident, if he's not scared about, he will be very productive and creative and cooperative. So, but the next point is always that the rules, we have to understand, of public behavior in the public space might be different in different countries. What I mean public space, it's not only government, It's not only street, theater, exhibition hall, or whatever, discotheque. It's also schools, healthcare, universities, of course, everything, even army and police, everything which is connected for protection of the society, not of the individual. And we have to understand that those rules protecting the society should be very strict according to the local tradition. So we respect what you do at your home, we respect what you do in your religious place, but in a public area, we all have to respect that this is a public area for all. So we have to perform according to some rules. And one of the rules, which is very important, we should really stick to the secular states. We have to tell each other that the religious state will not lead to the future. Because nobody can convince me one, let's say, successful example of a religious state. At the same time, we have to understand that secularism also might become a radical, and we should fight radical secularism too. So basically, I would say we should go mainstream of the moderates and exclude the radicals. So I just declared my own opinion about the situation and why I'm so optimistic, because I know too much. And therefore, more I know, more I understand, and more I can create tools for very healthy cohabitation all over the world. So the roadmap is clear. The question is only, are we all ready to follow it? We have to decide on that. So thank you very much for your attention, and I was very happy to share my views with you.
Thank you very much too, dear Mr. President. If you let me, I will ask our audience for question and comment. Thank you very much.
No limits, no limits.
No limits, of course. We are really quite behind the schedule, but you have this chance also in not so formal atmosphere during the lunch break. I'm sure that Mr. President will be happy to answer to your comments and questions. Okay. Thank you very much one more time for being today with us, and please join me in a very big round of applause for President Valdis Zatlers. Thank you very much, sir.